A mother in America just made a choice that no parent should ever have to make. She dropped her disabled child's health insurance, not because she could not afford it, not because the coverage ran out, because she was terrified that keeping it would get her family deported, and she was right to be afraid. Because in December, a ruling quietly went into effect that gave ICE, the Immigration Enforcement Agency, access to Medicaid enrollment data in 28 states, your medical insurance card, the one you use to get treatment for your children, the one that covers disability appointments and prescriptions and emergency room visits, can now be used by immigration enforcement agents to locate your family. 80 million Americans are enrolled in Medicaid right now. 80 million people who applied for health coverage gave the government their address, gave the government their family information, gave the government their medical history because they needed health care, and in December, without a press conference, without a major news cycle, without a single senator standing at a podium to explain what was happening, a ruling went into effect that turned that health information into an immigration enforcement database in 28 states. My name is Professor Zhang. I study systems, patterns, and the way government decisions ripple through the lives of ordinary people. And what I am about to show you in the next 8 minutes is not speculation. It is a documented sequence of events that has already affected real human beings, people who woke up one morning to find that the healthcare they depended on had become a risk to their family's safety. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what this December ruling does, who it affects, what the 22 state attorneys general who are suing to stop it are arguing, and why this matters to every American regardless of your immigration status or your political position on immigration. Now let me show you what this December ruling actually does and why every family with anyone on Medicaid needs to understand it before this week ends. Here is the specific legal change that happened in December. Explained as plainly as I can make it, Medicaid is a federal and state health insurance program. It is funded jointly by the federal government and individual state governments. The data collected when someone enrolls in Medicaid, including their name, address, family members, immigration status, and in many states medical diagnoses, has historically been protected by HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. HIPAA was designed specifically to prevent the government from using medical information for non-medical purposes. It was passed in 1996 with strong bipartisan support, precisely because Congress recognized that if people were afraid their medical records would be used against them, they would stop seeking health care, which would make public health outcomes dramatically worse for everyone. The December ruling changed the framework under which Medicaid data sharing with federal law enforcement agencies is governed. Specifically, it created a pathway for ICE to request Medicaid enrollment data from states, including immigration status information that Medicaid collects at enrollment for the purpose of immigration enforcement operations in 28 states. That pathway is now open without restrictions. In those states, if ICE wants to know whether a specific individual is enrolled in Medicaid and wants to use that enrollment information, including the address on file, to locate that person for deportation proceedings, the state Medicaid agency is now required to provide it. 22 state attorneys general have filed legal challenges arguing that this ruling violates HIPAA, violates the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable government searches, and violates the constitutional right to medical privacy that courts have recognized in multiple previous decisions. Federal judges in 3 jurisdictions are reviewing emergency injunctions, but while those legal challenges work through the courts, the policy is active and being used in 28 states today. I want to tell you specifically about the mother I mentioned at the beginning because her story illustrates the human consequence of this policy more precisely than any legal analysis can. Her name has not been publicly released for her family's safety. Her daughter has Rett syndrome, a severe neurological disorder that causes progressive loss of motor function, requires constant medical supervision, and has no cure. Her daughter receives Medicaid-funded care that includes physical therapy, occupational therapy, specialized medical equipment, and quarterly specialist appointments. Without Medicaid coverage, the annual cost of her daughter's care would exceed $180,000, far beyond what her family can afford privately. When this mother learned about the December ruling, she faced a choice that no parent should ever have to make: keep her daughter's Medicaid coverage and risk that the address on file, the address she gave the government when she enrolled her daughter in a health program, would be used to locate and deport her family, or drop the coverage, and figure out how to manage her daughter's complex medical needs without the insurance that makes it possible. She dropped the coverage. Her daughter, a child with a severe neurological condition, is now without health insurance in America because her mother was afraid that the health insurance card was a deportation risk. That is not a hypothetical consequence of a policy debate. That is what happened to a real child with a real disability in a real American state this week, and she is not alone. Healthcare providers across the 28 affected states are reporting significant drops in Medicaid enrollment renewals and in new applications from immigrant families. People are choosing no healthcare over healthcare that comes with an immigration enforcement risk. And when people who are afraid of the system stop seeking healthcare, they do not stop getting sick. They stop getting treated, and untreated illness does not stay within one family. It enters schools and workplaces and communities. and affects everyone around those families regardless of their immigration status. This is the public health dimension of the December ruling that almost no coverage has addressed. HIPAA was not designed primarily to protect individual privacy for its own sake, though it does that too. It was designed to protect the public health system's ability to function, because a public health system only works if people trust it enough to use it. When a significant portion of the population stops using Medicaid, stops vaccinating their children through public health programs, stops seeking treatment for communicable diseases because they are afraid the healthcare system is connected to the enforcement system, the public health consequences fall on everyone. Not just on immigrant families, but on every American who shares schools, workplaces, grocery stores, and public spaces with those families. I want to now show you specifically what 22 state attorneys general are arguing in their legal challenges, because their arguments reveal the constitutional dimensions of this ruling that the headline does not capture. The core argument is a Fourth Amendment challenge. The Fourth Amendment protects Americans against unreasonable government searches. Courts have consistently held that the government cannot obtain private information about an individual without a warrant or a recognized exception to the warrant requirement. Medicaid enrollment data, including an individual's home address and family information, is private information that individuals gave to the government for a specific, limited purpose, which is obtaining healthcare coverage, using that information for a different purpose, immigration enforcement, without a warrant and without the individual's knowledge or consent, is what the attorneys general are arguing constitutes an unreasonable search within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment. The secondary argument is a statutory one about HIPAA's preemption of state data sharing arrangements. HIPAA sets a federal floor for medical privacy protection. States can provide more privacy protection than HIPAA requires, but they cannot provide less. The attorneys general are arguing that the December ruling, by creating an immigration enforcement exception to HIPAA's privacy protections, establishes a standard of protection below the HIPAA floor, which federal law does not permit. The third argument is a structural one about the integrity of the healthcare system itself. Several of the legal briefs submitted include sworn declarations from public health officials documenting the enrollment drops already occurring in their states since the December ruling took effect. These officials are arguing to courts that the policy is causing immediate, measurable public health harm that justifies emergency injunctive relief before the full legal case is resolved. Here is what I want every American to understand about this ruling, regardless of where you stand on immigration policy. The principle being established by the December ruling is that information you give to the government for one purpose can be used by the government for a different purpose without your knowledge or consent. That principle does not stay contained to immigration enforcement. Once it is established in law, it creates a precedent that can be applied to every dataset the government holds about you, your tax records, your Social Security earnings history, your driver's license information, your voter registration, if the government can use your Medicaid enrollment data to enforce immigration law. It is establishing a framework in which any government dataset can be repurposed for any government objective. The privacy protection you thought you had when you gave the government that information is not the protection you actually have. This is not an immigration story, it is a privacy story, and the 22 states fighting it in court understand that what they are defending is not just the medical privacy of immigrant families. They are defending the principle that when you give information to the government for a specific purpose, that purpose is the limit of how the government can use it. Before I close, I want to come back to tonic greens one more time, because there is a connection I want to draw between the vulnerability this video is about and the vulnerability that comes from not taking care of your body while you navigate a world that feels increasingly threatening and uncertain when your body is under chronic stress. And watching the news in 2026 is chronic stress for most Americans. Your immune system takes a hit. Elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, does one thing to your body with consistent reliability. It suppresses immune function. That is why people under prolonged stress get sick more often, recover more slowly, and lose the physical resilience that makes everything else manageable. Tonic Greens delivers a blend of immune-supporting nutrients designed to help your body maintain its defenses even under stress conditions. The link is in the pinned comment and in the description. Try it for 2 weeks, money-back guarantee, no risk. Your body needs what it needs regardless of what is happening in the world. This ruling is real. It is active today in 28 states, and the mother who dropped her disabled daughter's Medicaid coverage to protect her family from deportation deserves more than 4 minutes on a morning show before the anchor moves to the weather. She deserves the full analytical picture of what happened, why it happened, and what 22 attorneys general are doing right now to stop it. Now you have that picture. Subscribe right now if this gave you something that the news cycle is not providing. Drop a comment below with yes or no. Did you know about this December ruling before watching this video? I read every single comment. I will see you tomorrow.